here today. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Mary Jedwisiak here from Holding the Hope, and we are here with the Other Nine podcast, and where we talk about SAMHSA's guiding principles of recovery, all nine except peer support, because peer support already gets all the attention. So we want to bring more attention to the other nine. Thus the name, the Other Nine podcast. And today I'm talking with Chandra Davis Taylor, who I've never met before, and I'm super excited. Chandra credits her participation in drug court and peer support for helping her get over a 27-year addiction. So that's pretty impressive. Hi, Chandra. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about what that was like. Well, first of all, I just want to say a little bit. You live in Utah,
I
right?
do.
Yeah, and how long?
Rural,
Rural.
rural Utah, Cedar
Rural.
City, Utah.
And that there's a difference, huh?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And and how long have you been there?
I was born and raised here in Cedar City. I mean, I've lived in different places, but I was born and raised here.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about like what tell me your story. What's
So,
tell me about tell me the highlights. Like what helped you?
my name is Chandra. I'm a woman in long-term recovery from substance abuse and mental illness. My recovery date is 12/24 of 2019.
Nice.
Um, I mean, so like most people that become addicts and alcoholics. I grew up in an abusive home.
Yep.
Um, you know, uh, my stepdad was really abusive to my mother and to us kids. God bless him. He came from broken too, though.
Sure.
And we live what we learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had I have my dad. My dad is my very best friend. Um, my mom is still in her illness.
Yeah.
My stepdad has since passed away. When he passed away, though, we had a good relationship. You know,
Oh, nice.
he um he apologized to us kids,
Wow.
and that was huge for me. That was huge, and by the time he passed away, he had both of his legs amputated from his alcoholism. And
Yikes.
and I was
Oh,
able to, my husband and I were able to build him a ramp and everything for his
yeah.
wheelchair. I was able to show up for him.
Yeah.
And I was there for his last days of his life. My mom is still, she's still my mom, and I've learned to love her right where she's at.
And that's the essence of peer support, right? Is like
Absolutely.
you have to just accept people right where they are
Yep.
because that's where they are. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah,
anything else doesn't make any sense,
that's right.
really, when you think about it.
One of my favorite sayings, because God is my higher power. God is
Yeah.
my higher power. And one of my favorite sayings is, you don't have to change to go to God. Going to God changes you.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I like
And I
that.
love that.
Yeah.
Um, so thankfully my mom lives like 800 miles away. Don't get me wrong, I love her, but
She
when
won't
she
hear our podcast anyway, right?
I hope not.
Hi,
But
Mom. Yeah.
when she does come, like she's coming on the 16th next month because I'm having a total knee replacement,
Oh, uh-huh. I've
and
had
she
two of
wants
those.
to come and mother me, and I'm like, just so you know, I'm doing this without pain pills. So yeah, I know.
Chandra, I've had two of those, and my sponsor came to visit me, and I am telling you, it's
I
okay. If you want to use the pain pills, it's going to be okay.
No, truthfully, I am going to do it for the first 3 days.
I think that's wise
Yeah,
because your body really needs to be able to rest enough to
and
heal.
heal. Yep, yep. And
Now,
if I'm with suffering,
I did really, I paid really close attention because, I mean, I paid really close attention. I had somebody else, of course, I was too much pain so somebody else managed all my meds for me. And then, and then, uh, and then I started to wean myself off of them because I
yeah,
was like, well,
that's
you know what? This hurts like crazy before the surgery. And I tolerated it. I can tolerate the pain after the surgery.
absolutely, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I just, I would, I, yes, I understand your intention.
yes.
I
That's
think
what a lot of the old timers have told me too,
it's a noble
Chandra.
intention.
It's different when you've had time in recovery and like you know how to take stuff as prescribed, and
Right.
I'm going to give the pills to my husband and we're going
There
to
you
set a
go.
timer like we did when I had my hysterectomy, but I'm
Yes.
only going to get three days worth and
Okay.
then we'll go from there.
All right. Well, good for you.
Thank you.
You know, and I think that you're just honoring your time. You're just honoring the time
Absolutely.
that you have when you it's precious and we have
It
to take
is.
care of it. We have to protect it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I was talking to
Absolutely.
somebody the other day about recent events, and they were like, "Did you see X and X and Y and Y?" And I said, "No, I stopped watching because my mental health is finally in a really good place,
Mm,
and I will not jeopardize that." So
yeah.
I just have stopped watching because I know where my brain will go.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Well, and that touches on which one is it? The many pathways.
Mm,
So,
yes. Look at you bringing it back to
so
the
I work for Southwest Behavioral Health
okay.
in Cedar
Southwest
City.
Utah.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Southern Utah.
Okay.
And so we are the main Medicaid provider for our 5 counties,
Okay.
which are all rural.
Yes.
And we're getting ready to have our recovery conference. And I was talking, so I'm on our QI committee because I'm our peer support coordinator, peer support specialist, peer support
Yeah.
trainer,
Right, right, right.
all the things, and
All
and
the
I
things.
was, yeah, and I was talking to one of the administration people, and she was like, "I'm really trying to figure out a theme for this conference." And I was like, "Well, how about recovery looks different for everyone?" And
Mhm.
that is what our theme is for our recovery
Nice.
conference. And I think that that's so important. Like I am an advocate for harm reduction.
Yes.
A lot of the old timers really
I
frown at
know.
that.
I know.
And and I get the
I know.
opportunity to explain to them, hey, just because your recovery looks like this for you, does that mean that you're not in recovery?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like for some people, it is absolutely total abstinence. That's what for me. I am
Yeah.
totally abstinent
Me
from
too.
all mood or mind altering substances. However, if you've got Joe Weber over here that has been using heroin most of his life and now he's on say Suboxone, and here we are a
Come
year
on.
later and Joe has a job and a home and a place, and has
That's
been able
right.
to maintain that for a year. That is recovery for
That
Joe,
is big time recovery. Absolutely. I agree with
and
you. Yep.
so I
Yeah.
I'm just a really huge advocate for that, whatever that
Yeah.
might look like for you,
Yeah.
and
So,
ultimately to not have to use that as a tool is best in my opinion, but that's my opinion.
but it's a tool. It's a tool. Just like mental health meds, they're tools. They
Yes,
help you have the best life possible. That's the point,
absolutely.
is to get your
Absolutely.
life back, right?
Yes,
That's why we do this. We don't do this just so we can sit in meetings and or, sit in state meetings or go to work. We do this so we can get our life back. So that
absolutely.
we can have the relationships, we can have jobs, we can have our families, and we can help others.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
that's why we do this.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. What gives you hope, Chandra?
What gives me hope?
Chandra, did I say that right?
Chandra. It's like Jackie Chan, but with a druh.
Thank you, Chandra. Okay.
It's okay. I saw this meme on Facebook that said people have said my name wrong so many times in my life. I wonder if I'm even saying it right. So
My last name is Jedwisiak, and I absolutely there's so many different people that pronounce it differently, and my mom came out and I said my name once and she kind of looked at me funny and yeah, I mean, am I pronouncing it right? I don't know. I don't know.
that's
Anyway.
so funny. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But what gives me hope? So I abandoned all my children in my addiction.
Mm,
And my two oldest pretty much, at birth. And then I had a daughter that I raised for almost 5 years of her life. And then I relapsed.
yeah.
And I chose to relinquish my parental rights. And all of my children are back in my life today. And I'm a
Wow.
grandma. And both of my
Wow.
grandchildren have never seen me drunk or high. That gives me hope.
Mhm.
Um, I get to work with people And I like to call, so I say I went from Dylan Dope to Dylan Hope.
Right.
I actually had a bunch of shirts made for a bunch of us peer supports here at our agency that say Hope Dealer,
Yes. Yes. I love
because
that. I
that
love
gives me
that.
hope. That's, I'm a hope dealer today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, the fact that my family trusts me today, that gives me hope.
You know, here's you might understand this. Recently, my son my son's having surgery. He called me the other day and he said, "Hey, my he's had to have a series of surgeries, and this is the 2 out of 3 that's coming up, right?
Uh-huh.
So he's healed really well from the first one, so it's time for the second one." And he called me and he's like, "Hey, my surgery is scheduled for such and such time. I would really like you to be on my care team. Are you available?" And what?
What? Yeah.
Yeah, like, where did this
Yeah.
come from? Like, I'm just so grateful that I'm able to be helpful and that they want me around. Him and his
Yeah.
daughter-in-law, they want me around, my daughter-in-law, his wife,
Yeah.
that, I'm not a destructive force in their life,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
the things I've learned about how to have relationships and is just like, wow, I can do this. And it seems to be working. And yeah, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
I
Heck yeah.
know. Yeah. So yeah, having kids in your life is a big deal.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Tell me about drug court.
So it's mental health court.
Oh, it's mental health court. Oh, that's even
Yes.
better. Tell me about that.
So I love mental health court because so I'm also in my third year of my bachelor's degree in social work
Good job.
and will be applying for master's program.
Okay. Good job.
Um, because I want to be a therapist with an emphasis. I want to do an emphasis on trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've learned, and I've had many conversations with our director of all 5 of our agencies, who was once my trauma therapist.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, drugs and alcohol are not the problem. They are a symptom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our trauma
A hundred
that
percent.
is the problem. And
Often, yes.
until we face that trauma and learn to heal from that trauma, drugs and alcohol are always going to be a symptom, or food, or
Right.
clothes, or shoes, or
Right.
whatever it may be.
A solution as opposed to just really walking through it and facing it
Yeah,
and dealing with it.
absolutely. And I'm sorry, remind me the question again.
Tell me about mental health court. How did
Thank
how
you.
did you
Thank
get
you.
there? How did it help you? What yeah,
So, how did
yeah.
I get there? So, I've been in and out of treatments. I am also a drug court graduate in
Okay.
2005.
I think the
Uh,
therapeutic courts are fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. I love these specialty courts. They're great. So, in 2016, my ex-boyfriend murdered my boyfriend.
Oh my God.
That really sent my addiction over the edge. I left and went down to Vegas and started prostituting and robbing houses, just violating people's security,
Yeah.
and that really took me over the edge. And so I was also dealing large quantities of drugs here in Cedar City at the time. And so they had me. So not only was I a material witness in a murder investigation, but they
Mhm.
also had me on a couple of distribution charges here in Cedar.
Okay.
And so I spent a few years on the streets in Vegas, California. I mean, I think even one of my clients, as I called him, he flew me to Bellingham, Washington. Oh my gosh, that was the cool experience. Anyway, one of the times when they got me back here to Cedar on my warrant, they did a PSI on me, and
What is it? Tell me what a PSI is.
it's a pre-sentence investigation where
Okay.
they kind of come and do like an interview with you and your life, and then they also do like a background check and how many times have you been in trouble,
Okay.
that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Okay.
And And so being from a little town, like, so the guy that was doing the PSI, I've known him pretty much my whole life. He golfs with my dad, all the things, and he had
Mm,
told me, Chandra, I want you to do drug court. And I said, absolutely not. Well, why not? And I said, I'm a drug court graduate. Obviously, I've already gotten the tools that I need from that program. I
yeah.
said, but I had heard about mental health court, and I says, I will do mental health court. I
Yeah.
need
Okay.
help. I need to
Yes.
be in therapy. I don't need another drug treatment.
Right.
I need to focus my attention on fixing the problem,
Yeah.
fixing me, fixing what's wrong in here and in here,
Yeah.
in my head and in my heart.
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Okay, we'll let you do mental health court." And so, gosh, when did I start mental? Gosh, I've been in recovery for 5 years. So in 2020, the
Okay.
beginning of 2020, I started mental health court. I had a relapse about 9 months in, only because I was trying to sabotage my relationship because I got in this relationship with this guy. He's also in recovery, my husband.
Okay.
But like his family was normal. And it was really weird to me. Although his parents are kind of helicopter parents, he's an only child, but I was just like, this is
Yeah.
weird to me.
What?
Like, you guys care about where I'm at and what I'm doing. Like, you guys are weird. And so I tried to
You
intentionally
even know about
sabotage.
what I'm doing and what I'm like, you even know? You like, you pay attention? What?
Exactly. And they support all my hopes and dreams and the things that
Oh,
I want to do, and so
nice.
I was like, and I realized, I went out and used, and then I came home and I told my boyfriend, and I really expected him to just break up with me, and he
Mhm.
didn't. And here we
Loser.
are,
Loser.
5. I know, right? What the hell is wrong with you? You need therapy. But here we are 5.5 years later, and we've
Yeah.
been married for a year and a half of those 5.5 years, because it took me, I want to marry you, and I was like, that's cool, that's
That's
cool.
awesome. That's
We're gonna see
amazing.
if you're really gonna stick around. So I made him stick around for a long time. But mental health court, we focus on their mental health. We don't really focus as much on the substance abuse. Like, they will have a substance abuse evaluation,
Sure.
and if it calls for inpatient or IOP, then they will go and do that. But they also work with a mental health therapist. So
Yes.
not just a SUDSI, we've got them with a mental health therapist, and so they're working on their SUDSI and they're working on their mental health, their trauma, things like that. And
Right.
that's where we
And
differ from
SUDSI
drug
is
court.
substance use disorder.
Yep. So, and SUDSI, so there's a difference between a therapist
Mhm.
and a SUDSI. A SUDSI therapist usually only has their associate's degree,
I see.
and
Okay.
their main focus is substance abuse
Got it.
therapy,
Okay. Okay.
versus master's degree,
Right.
and you're an LCSW or a
Sure.
CMHC, or
Sure. Yeah. All those letters.
yes,
All the
yes.
letters.
I have a PhD in life, so
Right. Right. Um, so then you went through then you went through mental health court and you dealt with some of your mental health issues.
I did.
And is that where you first were assigned a peer support
That
person?
is where I was first assigned to peer support. And towards the end, they kept saying, Chandra, you should go take the peer support training. You should go take the peer support training. And at the time, I was managing a deli down in Laverick, Utah. And I was like, no, I'm a deli manager. I'm going to be here forever.
Right.
You know,
I
and,
got
and mind you, even all through my addiction, I always excelled at every job I've ever had, because I've
okay.
always had a really good work ethic. And then there would come that point where, the drugs were
Right.
taking control, as they always do. But so I was like, oh yeah, no. But today, my peer support, while I was in mental health court, she is now my coworker, and we do mental health court together.
Isn't that amazing? What a
Yeah,
great story.
it's pretty cool. It's really, really cool. Yeah. And so, and it's helped me learn too how to work with people that don't have a substance abuse, that only have a mental illness.
Right.
because their symptoms can look just like mine do when I'm in
Right.
active addiction.
Right.
And so it's been pretty neat, and it's been a really good growing and learning experience for me to be able to work with people. And they're my people, like they're my people. Like you are
Yeah.
me and I am you.
Right. Right.
So, yeah, so I just, and I really love our judge. He always has a really great quote before we start court. He always just comes up with these amazing quotes, and he always tells our people, "Look, when you come into this court, when you plead in, this isn't about your charge. This is about your transformation."
Nice. So this is somebody who's telling them not only um, that you can, it's possible that recovery is possible,
Yeah.
right? It's and we expect it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. We expect it to happen. What
Yeah.
a great approach. So, because people come in and everybody's like, "Oh, you have such potential," and "Oh, I'm so disappointed." But then when somebody comes in and just expects that you're gonna do well, it's a very different environment and
It really is.
a very different feeling as a person who's experiencing that.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
What are some of the greatest things you've learned from your time in recovery?
That, like I said, recovery looks different for everyone.
Right? Yeah.
Um, that what works for me may not work for somebody else, and that's
Right.
okay. That's
Right.
okay. Um, that the people that I work with help me stay clean and sober just as
Mm.
much as I can help them stay clean and sober.
Peer support is mutual. I
Absolutely.
love that. I think that's
Yes,
what's different between peer support and clinical services is that it's that mutual thing. We learn from the people that we support just as much as the people we support learn from us.
absolutely.
And
And
it's very different from any other form of support, I think.
absolutely. And, and it's helped me really see some of my character defects.
Mm,
It's really like, ooh, Chandra. Oh, girl, you better call your sponsor. You better tell
nice.
her this is what you've seen. And I love that because it's helped me grow as a person too. My dad, I love him. He's just very abrasive, very matter of fact.
Uh-huh.
And I've learned to be that way.
Uh-huh.
And I noticed that I was like that with a lot of my peers in the beginning. And I hurt people's feelings. And so I had to
Yeah.
go back and clean up my side of the street and be like,
Sure,
look,
and it's not helpful when when you're trying to be supportive to tell somebody, "Here's what you gotta do." Yeah, no, that's not how that
and
works.
it works with some people. It does. With some people it does. But it's also helped me learn who I can be that way with and who not to be that way with.
Yeah.
And so I really made a lot of amends my first couple of years in this job. But I have one person that has been very successful, and and he told me, he's like, Chandra, I needed you to be hard with me. And here he's going on 3 years clean and sober,
That's
and
fantastic.
it's the coolest thing ever. And he was one that I was like, miss me with all your bullshit, bro.
Yeah.
Who do you think you're talking to?
I
That's the
see
good thing
you.
about peer support too, is I can look at somebody and be like, do you know how full of crap you sound right now?
Yeah,
Like, try again. Like, you don't like, you know how many times I tried that?
yeah, yeah. And also, I think what I like about the whole people within recovery working in the system is that we get to work like a translator, right? We can translate
Yes.
the system to the people that we serve. And then we can also translate them to our coworkers, our clinical coworkers who
Yes.
don't really see what's going on. We can be like, now hold on. let me give you some background information here.
Mhm.
Let
Absolutely.
me give you a cultural perspective from
Mhm.
the person in recovery, because it is a very much a culture,
It
especially if a
is.
person is coming from the culture of poverty or a
Mhm.
culture of a gang culture or a street culture. These there's there's life perspectives and viewpoints that somebody who has never been anywhere near that isn't going to get.
Absolutely. I'm in Utah, and so a large number of our therapists are LDS.
Sure,
And so they don't really, they don't understand a lot of things when it comes to substance abuse. Some of them do, because they do have
sure.
children, but some of them just don't understand it. And what I love though is since the peer support movement began in Utah, we like myself and Shelly, my coworker, my partner, I call her, um, the therapists come to us. They come
Yeah,
to us and be like, "Hey, so and so, like, how do I handle this?" And it's like, "Oh,
yeah,
this might help. This might, they come to
yeah,
us and ask us, and they are seeing the benefit of having people like us on board with the
yeah.
team."
Yeah, I mean, I think that I remember you back in 1995 when I first started teaching and training about recovery.
That's so cool.
It was a myth. Like people just you did not get well. You might get well from alcoholism if you went into, absolute abstinence. But mental illness was a death sentence. It was a life
Hmm.
sentence, man.
Yeah.
You did not get well. You might be able to have symptom stabilization, but you're never going to work again. You're never
Hmm.
going to, you shouldn't have kids. Don't get married. Your future is over.
Yeah.
So, that I think in the past 30 years has um has gone away. I mean, you
It
just don't
has.
that perspective for the most part has just retired away. I should say, right? And so the new people coming in now, the expectation is I can help. There's hope. We know now that
Yes.
people get well. The expectation now is that people can get well. Even if I'm not sure, we do know, and it also depends on what does wellness look like?
Yeah.
And for me, it isn't just symptoms. Doesn't mean that you're like struck perfect. It just means that you get to take what circumstances you have in your life right now and have the best life possible.
Absolutely.
And use the tools that are available to help you correct course or um, understand what's going on in your brain, if it's voices or if it's a compulsion, or
Yep.
figure that shit out and work with it.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean you can't have a fantastic life.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
so that's the part that gives me really hope, is to see how far the system's come.
I agree. I agree. And it's also, people like us are helping to reduce stigma.
Yes.
We are reducing the stigma. We are being examples.
Yes.
Definitely. You know, um, I always wanted me a little country boy, because I'm from Cedar City. I'm a little country girl. I always wanted a little
Yeah.
country boy. I got me a country boy. We have an acre of land. Um, we started out with chickens. We have about roughly 50 chickens right now. We've got 40 more coming
Oh my
this
goodness.
summer, and then we just bought 6 goats.
Fun.
Yeah, we have meat goats and milking goats.
Okay.
So,
And then
yeah.
the milking goats, are you gonna like make soap and stuff or just
I'm gonna
sell off
make
the milk?
cheese and soap. Yes. Yes.
Ooh,
And then
okay.
I'm also an egg dealer. Have the
Sure.
finest yolk in southern Utah.
Nice. Sure you do.
I
Is there a
just
website where people can buy your produce?
No, not yet.
You just
Not
gotta
yet.
just kind of hit you up and
Yes.
Chandra, we need some eggs.
Yes.
I
Yep.
hear that I hear that the price of egg feed, I mean of chicken feed, has gone through the roof around
It's
here.
Here in Utah, it's really not that bad.
Okay.
I mean, it's like 17.99 for a 5 pound bag of feed,
Okay.
which is not really not that bad. It's really
Okay.
not.
All right. All right. Because I have some friends who have chickens and they're like complaining about the price of chicken feed. So
Yeah, I would imagine in other
What do I
places, though,
know?
it might be a little bit more expensive too, though, depending,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
And we also go to our local feed store here and buy from them because it's local.
Right. Yes. So you've got your kids back in your life.
Yeah,
You've got a good man in your
I
life,
do. I
a
do.
good partner, and you've got a land that you can stick your toes in the dirt when you need to, and
Yes.
you got a great job
I do. I have the
helping other
best job
people.
in the world. Like I wake up grateful every morning that I have a job that I get to come to that I absolutely love, even on the hard days, even when I've got
Yeah.
someone that is struggling,
Yeah.
even when I'm like, "Oh, what am I going to do with you?" But
Yeah.
it's still it's still the best job in the whole world
That's
because I get
fantastic.
to be of service. I
What do
get
you
to be of
think?
service.
And what do you think is the one thing that really keeps you well? Is there, it's like, what kind of practices do you have that help you really stay well?
So, the number one practice that I have is I am on my knees every morning before my feet hit the floor,
All right
and
then.
I surrender my will in my life every day. Um, I have a relationship with God. I do. I
Yeah.
have that spiritual connection every day. That is the structure and the foundation of my recovery. You know, I still go to 12-step meetings. I do, I feel like if I'm going to preach about 12-step meetings, then I better have my ass at one.
Yeah.
I have a sponsor still, and then I also have a therapist that I meet with once a month, and I verbally and emotionally throw up all over her once a month. That's what I pay her for, you know? And and I love her.
Yeah.
She's not just my therapist, she's my friend,
Yeah.
and I love that, and I think it's so important. I often think, I wonder if my therapist has a therapist and her therapist has a yeah, I'm sure they do,
Yeah. I think
and
they're supposed to.
yeah, yeah. And and like on this, it says strength and responsibility. So I have also I have a mental health diagnosis. I've been diagnosed with PTSD and
Right.
clinical depression.
Right.
And I have days where my depression just really kicks my butt
Yep.
and I don't want to get out of bed. But then that's when
Understood.
I'm like, Chandra, people are depending on you today.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are people that are depending on you to get out of bed and show up for them. You had people that got out of bed and showed up for you. So now it's your turn to get out of bed and show up for them. Does that mean I shower? Nope. I had one of them days today and I'm in sweats and a t-shirt and my hair's in a ponytail and nothing, no makeup, nothing. And I still got up and got out of bed and I showed up.
Yep. I have very, very similar to what you're saying. And I have the top 5 that I do every day. And it's basically I make my bed, I open the curtains because I will close my curtains and isolate. I open my
Yep.
front curtains, I get dressed, I brush my teeth, and I do something with my hair. Those are my top 5. So if I take a shower, it's a bonus, baby.
Hell
It's
yeah.
a winning
Oh,
day.
oh yes,
It
it
is a
is.
winning day.
It really is.
And
Yeah.
then I kind of just step out and I think one of the things also that I've learned in my time in the rooms is we don't have to do this alone.
No, we do not.
We don't have to do this alone. And so I've really been kind of saying, all right, where can I go find support and help, and where can I be the person who provides support and help?
Yeah.
Because I think especially in this, I work at home alone. I work from my home. I own my company, but I work
Nice.
from home,
Yeah.
and I live alone. And so it's like I could very easily just, be sitting here with DoorDash and Netflix and, hop online and
Yes.
answer a few emails on occasion, and that would be
Yeah.
my life. But I have to be really intentional that that's not enough, that I want more and I'm gonna get more.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. The human connection is so important. it's so
Mhm.
important to have that human connection, whether
I
it's a
agree.
hug or talking to somebody on the phone.
Mhm.
But I think that physical connection is super important to have that physical connection,
Yeah.
you know. Um, I did want to talk about, so they tell us when we get into recovery to buy yourself a suit or a dress, or because you're going to be going to a lot of funerals. And
I've never
I've
heard that, but
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that
that's
makes
something
sense.
that I've heard from the old timers here. They've said buy yourself a suit or a dress because you're going to be going to a lot of funerals when you get into recovery. And
Okay.
I've
That is old
lost,
school.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and I've lost a lot of people in my recovery, and it was like, okay, yeah, but so I have one blood sibling, one blood. It was my baby brother. Um, and we ran the streets together. He'd been in and out of prison his
Yeah.
entire life,
Yeah.
and no matter what though, I was always there. He was more of my kid than he was my baby brother.
I see.
Um, and in November of last year, he died from an acute methamphetamine overdose.
Oh, jeez.
And he had just done 7 years of his life in prison
Oh, no.
and had only been out just a little over a year when he died. And, Mary, that really rocked my world.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. And I wallowed in my grief. I allowed
Sure.
myself to wallow in my grief for a month and a half. A month and a half I wallowed, and I just, I didn't talk to anybody. You know, I guess I can't say nobody. I did keep in contact with my sponsor, and I
Sure.
did a lot of praying, a lot of praying, a lot of time on my knees. And finally I just had to say, "Okay, Chandra, are you going to let this grief destroy you and take you back somewhere that you don't want to be and somewhere that your brother was so proud of you for not being anymore?
There you go.
Or are
Yeah.
you going to take this grief and use it as an opportunity to continue to grow and to continue to help other people find their hope?" And of course, I chose the latter. Here I
Yeah.
am,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but I still have my days when I'm in my grief,
Absolutely.
and I allow myself to sit there though. I don't pretend like there's nothing wrong. Like I tell my people at work, "Hey, it's one of them days. It's a grief day."
Hmm.
And they check on me and they allow me to just have my feelings. And I talk to my peers about it. I tell
Yes.
them,
Yes.
"Hey, look, recovery doesn't mean that life is all rainbows and butterflies every day.
Right.
What recovery means is when things like this happen, we can get through them without using or
That's right.
without without being hospitalized or
And we can get through it with other people.
yes. And that's when we really need to reach out the most, when we don't want to, you know?
Yes, I do.
When we don't want to, that's when we
Yeah.
really, really need to, because that's when our ass is falling off
Yep. Yep.
and we're the most
100%.
vulnerable.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much stuff goes on, and I think that it would have it's yeah, I wonder sometimes what my life would be like, and I just don't care to know. I'm like, this is the life I have. This is the life I have now, and my options are awesome, and I'm so grateful for the life I have now. I don't think I would have changed anything.
Oh, I'm grateful for you too.
Oh,
I get a lot
thanks.
of your emails and stuff and I read through them and I'm like, "Oh, okay." I really think about them. And I'll send your emails, for your little trainings and stuff. I'll send them to my peer supports in my agency and be like, "Hey, here's some opportunity for some CEUs and
Thank you.
some learning."
Yes. Yes.
So,
We are getting ready to launch some cool stuff. In addition to this podcast, I'm putting together a training called the Peer Support Training Center,
ooh,
and so you can go there, and of course it's got Holding the Hope stuff. But then
sure.
you scroll down, and you click on a state, like you click on Utah, and it'll take you to all the links that you need to become a peer supporter in the state of Utah.
Nice.
right?
That's
So
freaking awesome. Heck
all
yeah.
50 states. So if you want to be a peer supporter, here's the state. And if we don't have the right link, there's a place where you can be like, "Oh no, here, this is the right one," and you can help us keep the thing updated. And
That's awesome.
there's also a place where you can upload jobs if you have jobs you want to upload. So
Okay.
it's just
Very
kind of a
good.
we're getting ready to launch it with final touches on it, but it's really a very cool product. It's just kind of a gift because 20 years in business this month, March.
That's awesome.
And
Good
so it's
for
like,
you,
okay,
girlfriend.
I'm gonna give people presents. It's my birthday, but I'm giving people presents because
Heck yeah.
it's my sobriety birthday. It's my business
Nice.
birthday. It's my dog's birthday. So March is
Aw.
a great month.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's freaking awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
really appreciate your support. Yes,
one
tell
more
me.
thing I wanted to touch on. Person driven,
Oh,
person centered recovery.
yes. What
That
does that
is the
mean for
one.
you?
So I really love it when I have my first sit down with my peer. And one of the things that I ask them is, what do you want this to look like for you? What do you want your recovery to look like
That's a
for you?
hard question.
It is.
That's a really hard question
It is.
because you don't even know what to hope for,
Yeah.
right? We're
Yeah.
so addiction and mental illness, they just separate you from any vision.
Absolutely.
And I don't know about you, but when I left my home at the age of 18, I was like a BB in a blender. As my friend Oli used to say, we're like a BB in a blender. I didn't know anything other than what do I need to do today and what do I maybe need to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
That was it. And there was no long-term planning and stuff.
Yeah.
So when you ask me what do you want? I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know how to answer that question.
And that's the response that I get a lot. And I tell them, you don't have to tell me right now. I just want you to have that in your mind as we go along.
Yeah.
And then little by little, when you start to figure out how you want this to look like for you, then we'll write it down.
Yeah.
And these will be little goals that we'll set,
Yeah.
a 6-month goal, a 1-year goal,
Yes.
small achievable goals,
Yes.
and one of the cool things about our mental health court program that is different than most of the mental health court programs in the state of Utah is we have phase work so we have 5 phases, and each phase is 12 weeks, and every phase has phase work, and some of the phase work is redundant in different phases, but
Sure.
that's only because if you're really working and you're really doing the things that you need to do to change your life, that thing that you did in phase 1 is going to look totally different in phase
Right.
3.
Right. Right.
And so I explained to them there may be some things that are redundant, but this is why. Like their budget for,
Right.
just an example, and I don't think we do a budget in phase 1. But, hey, well, I don't have a job. That's okay. Cool.
Yeah.
But you still have a budget because you still are living somewhere and you
Right. You
still
still have
got to eat.
expenses.
Yeah. But then when we get to phase 3 or 4, let's go over your budget now.
Yeah.
And so they get to see their growth in that too. And I think that that's really important because
Yes.
sometimes we don't see our own growth. And
Yeah.
then when we can say, well, dude, like, look at this from this phase and look at this in this phase right now. And then they're like, oh, yeah. And it's like, dude, pat yourself on the back. It's okay. It's okay to celebrate your wins,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
Yep. And I think that I don't know about you, but I just felt like I didn't everything I knew was wrong. So I
Yeah.
so I don't have any authority in this. My job, and this is how I grew up, was to be, I was supposed to be compliant.
Yeah.
I never was taught how to think for myself. I was just, there was a code and you needed to live by it. And I just never could. I just never could.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be able to think for yourself and be a critical thinker, go in the world and make decisions. What? I don't know.
Right.
The
Right.
great biggest decision I ever made is which beer do I want to drink? I don't know. The hell?
that
Yeah.
that you know that's one thing too that I love when I just want to say thanks to Chandra. Or I want to say thanks to Shelley. And it's like, I tell them, no, I didn't do this.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I gave you some direction and some
Right.
guidance. You're the one that did all the things.
Right.
I didn't
Yeah.
do anything.
We just lay out the roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah, here's some suggestions. Here's some here's a map.
Yeah.
It's up to you to walk down that path. It's I don't do it. It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
You did all of that.
Yeah.
And it's cool to be able to get them, and then when I love so our peer support here. So Brian Nielsen and Ginger, I cannot remember her last name for the life of me, but they started peer support in the state of Utah. Ginger
Okay.
has just passed away this last year from cancer, but Brian Nielsen is still doing the whole peer support thing here in Utah. And he's a phenomenal human being. But he
Wow.
talks about igniting the spark of hope.
Right? Yeah.
And I love it when I see that spark ignite in people because you can see it.
Yeah, you
You
can.
can see it. And that I think is the most rewarding part of my job is when you see that spark ignite. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yay.
Yeah. When
And
somebody's like, "Oh, I can do that." Right?
yeah. Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and sometimes I don't say anything because I don't want to scare them and then they put that
Right.
flame out. So I just wait and watch that flame get brighter and brighter. And then, hey, did you realize,
Yeah.
it's the freaking coolest thing, man.
Who
Recovery is
knew when you
beautiful.
were
I
riding with your
know.
client up to Bellingham that here we'd be?
Yeah, like I used to tell people, yeah, I'm just a junkie prostitute. That's all I'm ever going to be is a junkie prostitute.
It's sad when when we believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's at the core. At our core, that's what we believe.
And I did. I believe that in every part of me.
Yep.
I
I
just like I'm a
understand.
junkie prostitute.
I understand.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. I'm a woman in long-term recovery.
That's right.
I'm a child of
Isn't
God.
isn't that amazing?
It's beautiful.
And I'm not afraid.
Yeah, I'm not afraid.
That's the part that I think one of the biggest gifts of recovery for me is I'm not afraid anymore. I lived my life in fear and shame, and I don't have either one of those anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
All right. So great to meet you. Thank you
You
so
as
much
well.
for coming on here and talking about recovery. Where else in the world could two strangers sit down and talk like this? But
I
if it's
know.
about recovery, you're like,
I
okay,
love it.
I
It's
do
the
too.
freaking coolest thing. Thank you so much for having
You
me.
are so welcome. All right, everybody. This has been Chandra, and she's been talking to us about her recovery. And I hope that you'll join us next time for the other 9 podcast.